Ripple XRP holders, this is not good news for Coinbase, and we have some breaking crypto news to bring to you in the markets today. Another bank collapse taking place, and what you need to do to prepare now so you can become the first millionaire in your family tree. You know what to do. Confirm it in the comments below. Comment 777 if you're feeling blessed. Comment 777 if you're feeling bullish, and let's run it. So in the past, Ripple has been compared to the company Chevron, and XRP has been compared to oil, with the idea that buying XRP doesn't give you access to Ripple's profits any more than buying oil gives you control over Chevron's price, or investing in Chevron would control the price of oil either way. And so the comparison has taken on new relevance with the Supreme Court's announcement that it will address the Chevron doctrine, is what it's called, which allows federal agencies like the SEC significant leeway in interpreting ambiguous laws. And the court will decide in the next term whether to overturn the decades-old precedent. And the Chevron doctrine has become one of the most frequently cited precedents in U.S. administrative law, and it is established that the court should defer to the interpretation of the appropriate regulatory authority, provided that such interpretation is reasonable. And so what's happening here is critics are arguing that it grants regulators overreaching power and allows them to exceed the statutory framework given by Congress. And so in the context of the Ripple lawsuit, the SEC may argue that XRP qualifies as a security under the Howey test, even though cryptocurrencies didn't exist back in 1946. According to XRP community attorney John Deaton, he's saying that the Chevron doctrine is a very dangerous approach because it involves unelected government officials who have extreme power to basically give authority over what is and isn't a security. And while Deaton sees no direct application of the Chevron doctrine to the Ripple SEC case, he believes it is more important in other respects, particularly in the banking issue. He believes that Caitlin Long, founder of Custodia Bank, is fighting the most important battle for crypto by applying for a banking license. So what do you guys think about this? Because do you feel that this lawsuit versus Ripple versus SEC is the most important lawsuit for the banking industry? Or do you think what's happening with Custodia Bank is more important? I personally think what's happening with Ripple versus the SEC is the most important. And when we talk about licenses and we look at exchanges like Coinbase, well, they just launched a new platform called Coinbase International Exchange, which allows institutional investors outside the United States to trade Bitcoin and Ethereum perpetual futures, which are a type of derivative contract for crypto. Now, this is a big deal, not only for Coinbase, but for this whole industry, because perpetual futures contracts accounted for nearly 75% of global crypto trading volume back in 2022. And Coinbase International Exchange is only available to non-US institutions in select jurisdictions right now, and all trading will be settled in Circle's stablecoin USDC. And you might be wondering, why does this matter? How does this affect your portfolio? And why is this important to know? This is extremely important to know. Please pay attention here, because it's a stab at international markets with a broader exodus from the United States and crypto exchanges and services, making this not that good news for Coinbase in the United States, because it's great for them overseas. However, in the United States, for them to be able to expand their global customer base, they need to compete with the likes of Binance and other massive international exchanges, because Coinbase is not as big as people think it is, even though it's the largest exchange in the United States. And this is right after Bittrex, which is another United States exchange that I talked about in a previous video, announcing at the end of March that it was leaving the US just weeks before getting sued by the SEC. And another exchange, Kraken, stops its staking services for US customers back in February as part of the settlement with the regulator. And this is all super important, guys, because crypto exchanges generate a large portion of their revenue from trading fees, and their largest customer base is in the US for Coinbase. And investors, that are putting money into cryptocurrencies and altcoins in Coinbase, that was roughly 40% in the United States for Coinbase. And after that, the rest are based in the UK and Europe, who make up another 25%, according to the company's recent annual filings. And Coinbase made $2.2 billion in revenue from transaction fees in Q4 of 2021 for the last bull run, which was 91% of their total revenue from trading fees. That's insane. And the company's total transaction revenue for 2021 was a whopping $6.8 billion. But compare that to Binance, which Binance had over 20 billion plus in revenue. So Binance dwarfs Coinbase. Coinbase's revenue declined in 2022 from It was 7.8 billion back in 2021, and it declined down to 3.1 billion in 2022, which was a 59.2% decline. So if they do not figure out how to generate more revenue from things other than trading fees, then they are going to suffer big time. And if they're not focused on growing internationally, if they're focused in the United States, they're going to be forced to move overseas. And that's what's happening right now. The industry total exchange volume was $4.25 trillion, and Coinbase was responsible for only 259 billion of that, which might seem like a lot, but that was only 6% of the total. And here's what's crazy to pay attention to, considering Coinbase is the largest exchange in the United States. It shows just how much more trading volume comes from overseas markets and how much more people in other countries are interested in crypto than in the United States. Even though people in the United States are interested in crypto, they just can't trade their favorite projects like XRP because it's not listed on Coinbase, right? And because Binance, which is the largest international exchange, was responsible for $1.64 trillion, that's over 38% of the entire industry in 2021. And that's insane. It's a lot more centralized than a lot of people think for one company controlling the majority of the industry's trading volume than the entire banking industry. Because when you really look at it, and you look at the likes of JP Morgan Chase, which is the largest bank by market cap in the United States, they only control between 5 to 6% of the global market cap. Even Upbit had 520 billion in May of 2021, and OKX had 415 billion. Huobi had 560 billion of the trading volume. So Coinbase didn't even make the top three. And when you look at the largest companies in the world by market cap, Apple only holds about 3% of the global market cap. So with the entire exchange market revenue in crypto being driven by trading fees and Binance controlling over 38% of those fees during the last bull run, there will need to be other companies who step up to grab some of that market share. Otherwise, Binance will be responsible for the bulk of the industry, and the crypto industry's main spiel, so to speak, is being decentralized. Well, the destroyer of decentralization is what? Centralization, right? A centralized exchange controlling the majority of the volume. And Binance's CEO has said in the past that he'd be willing to step down for a CEO that is more regulatory friendly to move into jurisdictions that would basically chokehold the crypto industry. So that's something to be aware of. Now, it's not something to be fearful of, but it's interesting when you look at the facts and you could be emotionally indifferent. So it's much more important than these Goliath, right? Crypto exchanges. It's much more important that they stay stable because unlike FTX, right? FTX collapsing, if Binance were to implode, then that would be worse for crypto than any effect that any bank in the world would experience through a bank run that would have on the global economy, because Binance controls over 38% of the trading volume. And speaking of bank runs, PacWest, Western Alliance shares tumbled as U.S. regional bank fears are persisting after the demise of First Republic Bank that I covered in a previous video. When you subscribe to the channel and you like this video, and JP Morgan Chase, they agreed on Monday, just a couple days ago, to acquire a majority of First Republic's assets in a $10.6 billion deal after regulators seized the lender, which became the largest U.S. bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis, which is massive. And after Jerome Powell's FOMC statement, we can expect more rate hikes coming for the rest of this year. So I encourage you to buckle up right now. We're backing up the truck all the way to the bank. We're grabbing the bags, packing them and stacking them, and get ready on all angles here. And we're helping you guys prepare, because everything that we've been telling you to prepare for is happening right now.
Good afternoon. Before discussing today's meeting, let me comment briefly on recent developments in the banking sector. Conditions in that sector have broadly improved since early March, and the U.S. banking system is sound and resilient. We will continue to monitor conditions in the sector. We're committed to learning the right lessons from this episode, and will work to prevent events like these from happening again. As a first step in that process, last week we released Vice Chair for Supervision Barr's review of the Federal Reserve's supervision and regulation of Silicon Valley Bank. The review's findings underscore the need to address our rules and supervisory practices to make for a stronger and more resilient banking system, and I'm confident that we will do so. From the perspective of monetary policy, our focus remains squarely on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I understand the hardship that high inflation is causing. and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. Today, the FOMC raised its policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point. Since early last year, we've raised interest rates by a total of 5 percentage points in order to attain a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2% over time. We are also continuing to reduce our securities holdings. Looking ahead, we'll take a data-dependent approach in determining the extent to which additional policy firming may be appropriate. I will have more to say about today's monetary policy actions after briefly reviewing economic developments. The U.S. economy slowed significantly last year, with real GDP rising at a below-trend pace of 0.9%. The pace of economic growth in the first quarter of this year continued to be modest at 1.1%, despite a pickup in consumer spending. Activity in the housing sector remains weak, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Higher interest rates and slower output growth also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. The labor market remains very tight. Over the first 3 months of the year, job gains averaged 345,000 jobs per month. The unemployment rate remained very low in March at 3.5%. Even so, there are some signs that supply and demand in the labor market are coming back into better balance. The labor force participation rate has moved up in recent months, particularly for individuals aged 25 to 54 years. Nominal wage growth has shown some signs of easing, and job vacancies have declined so far this year. But overall, labor demand still substantially exceeds the supply of available workers. Inflation remains well above our longer-run goal of 2%. Over the 12 months ending in March, total PCE prices rose 4.2%. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 4.6%. Inflation has moderated somewhat since the middle of last year. Nonetheless, inflation pressures continue to run high, and the process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go. Despite elevated inflation, longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by a 1/4 percentage point, bringing the target range to 5 to 5.25%. And we're continuing the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. With today's action, we have raised interest rates by 5 percentage points in a little more than a year. We are seeing the effects of our policy tightening on demand in the most interest rate sensitive sectors of the economy, particularly housing and investment. It will take time, however, for the full effects of monetary restraint to be realized, especially on inflation. In addition, the economy is likely to face further headwinds from tighter credit conditions. Credit conditions had already been tightening over the past year or so in response to our policy actions and a softer economic outlook. But the strains that emerged in the banking sector in early March appear to be resulting in even tighter credit conditions for households and businesses. In turn, these tighter credit conditions are likely to weigh on economic activity, hiring, and inflation. The extent of these effects remains uncertain. In light of these uncertain headwinds, along with monetary policy restraint we've put in place, our future policy actions will depend on how events unfold. in determining the extent to which additional policy firming may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time. The committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation, and economic and financial developments. We will make that determination meeting by meeting based on the totality of incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation. And we are prepared to do more if greater monetary policy restraint is warranted. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep our longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Reducing inflation is likely to require a period of below-trend growth and some softening of labor market conditions. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals.
What do you need to do? Because if the Fed isn't going to live within their means, if they're not going to default, if they're going to tax the rich more, if you want to become rich and you commented 777 because you're become the first millionaire and they plan on taxing you more, what do you do to legally minimize your taxes, make more money, and prepare yourself when the dollar collapses so you can have more XRP, so you can have more Bitcoin, have more Ethereum, have more Shiba Inu, have more Solana, more Cardano, whatever you want, and have more productive assets? Well, number one, you need to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video all over social media so we can help more people understand what's going on so they can prepare, because here's what I'm personally doing to prepare. And again, take this or leave it. This is not financial advice. Consult your financial advisor if they are a multimillionaire. This is what I've done and what I'm going to continue to do that helped me become a millionaire before 30. Number one, you got to think of money like manure, right? If you pile it up in one place, it stinks and it rots. But if you spread it around, everything grows. I'm investing into assets that will either produce passive income or hold value in times of inflation or hyperinflation. And that's where crypto, that's where gold, that's where silver, that's where international real estate comes into play as other countries expand and more people want to move overseas, let alone hire employees overseas. But in order for you to do that, you can't just rely on the income from your job to invest, because the rise of artificial intelligence is replacing workers in industries like healthcare, finance, manufacturing, transportation, retail, education. The list goes on and on and on. You are increasing your risk every single day of being laid off, the days that go by where you don't focus on building a business on the side. So that's what I'm also doing. I'm building a side business. And as always, you know what we're doing. We're backing up our truck all the way to the bank. We're grabbing the bags, packing them and stacking them, leaving no bags left behind, because we believe the spending power of the dollar is going down in value. That's the truth based on inflation and what the Federal Reserve is doing. Fed now is not going to fix that. The CBDC system that they're planning on ushering in is not going to fix that. So in order to fix that, you have to take it into your own hands, because together we're all going camping on the beaches of the moon, and Bull Runners Club is going up. So I will see you on the next video. I will see you on bullrunners.com. As always, you know what to do. Stay bullish.